All right, okay, let's get started. Hi, guys. Welcome back. If you're still here from the last show, thank you for sticking around. If you're tuning in for the first time, hi, welcome to it. My name's Ryan Selvy. I'm a motion designer, and I'm taking over Adobe Live this week to bring on really cool artists and talk about their process, their artwork, and their inspiration. We're also addressing any comments or questions that you may have in the chat. So if anything comes up while we're talking, please continue to say hello, throw in any questions you may have, and I'll relay them over to Clon. Hello to everybody in the chat over on Behance and on YouTube. Thank you for being here. Sam Peterson as our moderator, also a fantastic illustrator. Make sure you check out his work. He does a lot of stuff with Dungeons and Dragons and role-playing games. So make sure you check out his work. He also streams on Adobe and on Twitch. So check that out. And then hello to Oliver, Umacorn, Bruce, Paloma. Thank you guys for all being here. Also on YouTube, thank you to Capivera and Louisa for being here as well. I'm really excited to be with you guys over the next hour and a half as we bring Clon on. Clon is an immensely talented illustrator that started as a cartoonist and then later got into the world of Web3 as well. And we'll be going over all of his inspiration. We'll be going over his work. And I'm really excited to show you a bunch of the stuff that he sent over to me that we can also show off his stuff. But he's going to be able to talk about himself and his work better than I will ever be able to shine justice to. So with no further ado, please give a very warm welcome to Clon. Hey, Clon, what's going on?
Hey, how's it going?
It's going well. Thank you for coming on the show. It's great to meet you. Great to have you here. You're down in Atlanta, right?
Actually, no, I'm in LA.
Oh, you're in LA. Okay, cool. Well, thank you. Good morning to you. It's afternoon over here in Brooklyn. But I guess I just want to give you the space to first give a little rundown, an elevator pitch of yourself as an artist.
Yeah. So I am a cartoon artist who I've been illustrating since I was a very young kid, just sort of doodling on the sides of my homework and not listening in class. And through that would always kind of create a character. And characters have just always been something I've been drawn to through different cartoons and whatnot. And so as I got older, I started to get more serious about drawing. And actually, a big point in my life was when I got my first Adobe subscription to Photoshop and like a drawing tablet. And I could tell that was when I could finally take all my sketches and go further with it and do digital, put them on shirts, whatever. And so as I went into college, I started to get more serious about it and started a whole Instagram account called The Cartoonist, which we'll probably go into later. And then on the side, not the side, it was my major in college was to do graphic design. And when I left college, I did motion graphics for a while. So I sort of have this love for cartoons and motion graphics and sort of just anything that animates. So that's a little pitch about me, and I guess now I'm creative director at Cool Cats. That's the end point.
I love to see the constant dynamic changing of inspiration and focus. Because I myself, when I went to school, I went in for graphic design, then switched to illustration, then I kind of came back to graphic design. Now I'm mostly motion design. And it's just really cool to see the flexibility and to also see someone like you to kind of continuously just be like, okay, cool, I'm interested in this. Let's go this way. I'm interested in that. Go this way. Already in the chat, Paloma is saying amazing hair. So you have that going.
Thank you. Thank you.
And also, Bruce really likes your pillows.
Yes. Had to bring out the plushies.
Yeah.
I literally use that as a pillow all the time.
Do you really?
Yeah.
I feel like that's almost disrespectful. I feel like you're like headbutting.
I have multiple.
Okay.
That's how I get around it.
Also over on YouTube, thank you. Good to see you here, Dom. Also Bertelli, Asil, and Stubby. Thank you guys for being here. A bunch of hellos over on Behance from Oliver and Sam and Bruce. And thank you for giving us a little rundown of your history. The first thing I want to do is just hop into our very first segment, which is let's look at your work, and then we can kind of just pop through different things that you've created.
Cool.
Let's look at your work. So you were kind enough to send over a big selection of the different work that you've worked on in the past. And the very first one is really interesting to see is a physical piece. I feel like I normally see stuff that is digital from you. Can you tell me a little bit about this piece?
Yeah, so I think there's a few in here, but this sort of piece was called Expressions.
Hmm.
And it was a project I did in college where I kind of pushed myself to use only two brushes and two colors. So there's like this more sketchy brush and then one that's a little bit finer. And so only two colors. And the reason it's called Expressions was I was going through a weird time in my life where there was just like so much going on, just classic college kid. And so I didn't know how to like express it. So I used illustration to express it and I made my whole project around that. And as I started drawing this, I realized it had a lot of applications and that there's a lot of kids out there or people with mental disabilities who can't express themselves and they have a really hard time like verbally expressing themselves. And so by having these cards, it's like a good way of just like visually saying like maybe you're this chicken right now and you're just angry and like but
Right.
you have no way of expressing that. So you show the card. And so there's about I think 25 of them of just like a range of expressions.
Oh, very cool. It's kind of like those old posters of like how are you feeling with the different things. Um,
100% the inspiration there.
but it
Yeah.
almost gamifies it with the idea of almost like trading cards or
Mhm.
like a deck of like playing cards. It's cool to see. It's like having a like an array of being able to pick things up and interact with them. Do you still have them?
Yes, yeah,
Okay, cool.
actually not with me, but I do still have, like, a pack of them
Yeah,
because I made them into a bunch of cards. I wanted to get them professionally printed, but
yeah.
I just sort of used my printer and, like, cut them all up and stuff and made certain ones into, like, bigger posters, some of my favorite ones, but as you can see on the screen, there's, like the middle one is, like, trapped, like, you're feeling
Uh-huh.
trapped. The one, like, below it has, like, a corn dog next to it, and it's, like, desire, like, you're hungry,
The
you
blue one
need
is
something.
desire.
Yeah.
That's cute.
And
Do you
so
have
they
a
kind of
favorite?
just all range in emotions.
Do you have a favorite emotion that you feel like you ended up landing on?
It was the chicken.
It was the chicken
It
was your
was the
favorite
first
one?
one we saw. I just
Now
like it was
going
such a
into it, was
the
that your
red.
expectation?
Sorry, what?
Was it your expectation that that would be your favorite going into it, or was it
No.
one that kind of
No,
manifested?
it's sort of just as I was drawing it, like I think I was letting that like I was channeling the emotion like through the drawing and I think I was angry about something. And so like I just like drew this chicken and I don't even know if the chicken was angry at first, but then I gave it that like just one line eyebrow. And I was like, "Oh, this he's mean." And then I kind of gave him the arm. Originally, he had his middle finger up cuz he was flipping the bird. But I changed what I wanted this to be, and I wanted it to be more for kids, so didn't want that in there.
Yes, it didn't make sense to have the flipping the bird for the children.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
um, but very cool. It's something that we'll see as we look over your breadth of work and also look into some of your inspirations. Is you have a really good eye for simplicity and telling a lot with very little. And I like that these kind of continue to play with that with only two colors and only strong shapes. And to your point, like he didn't feel very angry until you added that little like on the eye.
It's
Um,
wild how one line can,
yeah.
like, completely change an expression.
No, so it's very cool. Then next up, you also added some things for I believe it's like some avatar
Yeah,
creation, right? What is this
yep.
about?
So, a lot I think I threw a lot of college projects in here because they were just, like, personally some of my favorite work I've ever done.
Hmm.
And I've always been into, like, paper, like, cutouts, like, just anything with paper and physical. And so, if anyone has seen the series of Avatar: The Last Airbender, they get a scroll and it has like old techniques of like one by one how to do the technique. And I was like, oh, this would be a fun project where I can do illustration but also flex my bookbinding skills because I was really big into bookbinding. And so everything you see except for the box was handcrafted.
Wow.
Um, and that like I had these like each scroll is 6 foot long, and so I like had this rice paper and like a decorative paper underneath, glued it together. Well, first I printed on it, glued it together, um, and yeah, each one has like a whole, it's two different like air bending or fire bending, whatever bending technique. And then in the back is like the map of the world. And so the project was just supposed to be something with pop culture. And so this is one of my all-time favorite series out there. And I figured it would be a good time to do it. So one of my
Now,
all-time
do you
favorites.
still reserve space in any of your passion projects to create any physical media anymore, like with bookbinding, or is that something that you haven't really
Unfortunately,
touched?
no.
Unfortunately, no. Okay.
Yeah, and like, so I have this desk, and that was the whole purpose of this desk, but I didn't realize that this like Wacom tablet, which I think some people have experienced, is just gigantic, and so
Yeah.
like took up my whole desk, and I'm reworking my office in a bit, but I really want to get back to physical stuff because that's like where I'm happiest is doing physical stuff, and like for instance, like when I draw on, I like to draw like this, where I just put a slip of paper in and I can just like illustrate. I definitely do digital work, but I realized recently that most of my career has been doing physical, like pen and paper. So
Yeah. And
I'm
then
trying
do
to
you
get
have
back to that.
a preference towards like which paper you like to do, or is it kind of just like anything that
Yeah.
is fair game you can go with?
Pretty fair game. I like it to have a little bit of texture to the paper because I like that like friction when you're drawing with a pen.
Yeah.
So
I've had friends that have told me to get like a paper cover for my iPad so that it has a
yes,
similar friction.
highly, 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 highly recommend that. It's called Paperlike, I think, but
Mhm.
yeah, it gives you that little bit of friction to make it feel like paper.
Yeah, I have to definitely get it. Next up, we have something of a cattern, and
Yeah.
this is a bunch of different variations of your cat character that you developed back. You said like in like 2012, 2011, right?
So the character, yeah, started in 2012, 13 era. And
Hmm.
I think that'll be something we'll talk about later. And so as I started developing this character, I feel like this was one of my all-time favorite pieces that I did because I just sort of had this template of actually I'm wearing the template
Oh
of
wow!
yeah,
was
yeah,
that
I totally forgot.
was that print all over?
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
so it's like all over. Um, and yeah, it's like all over. This was the Cattern 1.0,
Oh.
and the one that's on the screen is 3.0. And so it was like the final version of it. And the story behind this is just it was my highest selling like print, like because I would go to festivals a lot and just like sell my artwork. But this is actually the poster that started Cool Cats. It was like my buddy and I, Evan, another founder of Cool Cats, we were just sort of in the weeds on this other project. A dev kind of left us and we were back at square one. And I'm like sitting on my couch, just like bummed. And I see this poster on my wall and I'm like, wait, like Blue Cat, like I've already done a generative project in a way,
Right.
like right here. And so it just like clicked. And then like from that moment on, I was just like drawing a bunch of different outfits on Blue Cat. And so
I will
this
say
will always be my
somewhere
favorite.
across the way we did lose this hero. His lips.
Uh, that's so funny. I have looked at this a million times, and for some reason, my eye like glazes over that. I feel like I just saw that for the first time in like in like
It's
5
the
years.
hero. This is the best one on the
Yeah.
page. Which
Yeah.
one? Which one's your favorite from this selection?
Um, I always loved the penguin
The
because he was
penguin.
just, like the
He's cute.
penguin characters actually came before Blue Cat. I just drew
Mhm.
like a penguin all the time. And so I just love his simplicity of just like the two dot eyes and then just like this like one beak.
Yeah.
But
But
yeah,
once
the
again,
penguins always had a special place.
the simple
Mhm.
information of the beak literally just being a circle, but my brain does all of the heavy lifting immediately to know like what that reference is. And I think as we continue to look through stuff, we'll see that that's a continuous strong point of yours, is being able to simplify. Um,
And I always forget there's a cat dressed up like a penguin right next to him. I
that's
always forget
hilarious. I did not notice that.
that.
um,
Oh man.
and then obviously that this was all, as you said, it was like digital when you were going in and creating it, right?
No, so actually that is a physical piece scanned
Oh, wow.
in, and then I colored. So that with kind of where I was at with the cartoonist, I hit this point where I wanted everything to kind of be physical, and have that like organic touch to it. But I got tired of buying a bunch of Copic markers and like a bunch of colors because you were very limited by the colors you could buy. So I was like, oh, if I just scan this in, all the line work is done. Now just color it in digitally. So that's
Oh.
kind of where I went with
No, it
it.
adds up quickly. It's
Yeah.
fun, and it's also very unforgiving if you make any mistakes, which is why I kind of
It's-
lean towards digital when I can.
yeah.
Next up, we have this ATL.
Yeah.
And what was this for?
Honestly, just I was passionate about just being an AT alien, just like living in Atlanta.
Yeah.
And I thought it was like I just had this idea of it all being centered around a tree, but the
Mhm.
tree is actually the negative space, and that everything else fills in the background,
Yeah.
and spells ATL. And so this is when I started to develop the other characters around Blue Cat, the penguin, the bird, and the anteater, who is more of like an aardvark now, but he has his long tongue. And so it was just kind of a way to, living in Atlanta, going to festivals in Atlanta, I figured this would be a good piece to have. And for anyone who lives in Atlanta, Blue Cat's holding like an ice pop, and there's a person or a company, I guess, in Atlanta called King of Pops, and so they're really well known. And I just like wanted to have that little piece in
Can
there.
you get it shipped out to LA before they melt, or is
Oh,
it
I
just
know.
a
Yeah,
lost cause?
actually, you probably could. The way that
Probably.
they freeze it is, get the right truck to bring it over.
So, what led you to making it negative space? Why was that kind of the idea for the composition that kind of led the rest?
I just, with a graphic design background, you probably can relate. It's just like wanting to fuse design and illustration, and so I've always been a minimalist and love negative space because I think it makes the illustration like focused more. And so trees are everywhere in Atlanta, and we had a we literally had like what the penguin is sitting on in our front yard. My wife and I, that's who I'm referencing. But and I sort of just like was sitting there like looking at this swing and like the tree, and I was like, that would be cool if we did an illustration around that, but somehow fit text into it. And so that
Yeah.
was sort of like the starting point. And then just kind of went from there.
And also the limited color palette that you have here. When I think of Atlanta, I don't generally think of like fall colors. I normally
Yeah,
think of like the green lushness. I was actually just down there for one of my first times like a few weeks ago, and could
it was
definitely
probably
attest
hot.
to trees on trees on trees. It's very hot, very
Yeah.
green. But it's cool to see how I still believe it all when I'm looking at this, and I can still immediately be like, "Oh, Atlanta," which is a strong point.
Yeah. Fall is definitely beautiful in Atlanta because everything does shift to like the classic fall colors. And there's a bunch of trees that drop these like yellow leaves, but they drop like a bunch of them. So the
Yeah.
sidewalks will just be like yellow. And it's really cool.
It's just interesting also to see like I realize how much of your work I just associate with the color blue now because it's something that
Yeah.
obviously you surround yourself. So seeing these neutral tones that are definitely on the warmer side is interesting to see. What is this guy from? This little dino?
So this was a children's book I drew and attempted to write. And then in that moment, I realized I'm not good at writing, even on a children's level. Um, Funny story about that is this was also a college project, and I presented it to the class, reading everything I had. And the one critique I had was, yeah, it would have been better if you just didn't put text or try to explain it. They're like, the pictures did the explaining. And I was, yeah, that's the reaction I had. I was like, oh my gosh. So this is a children's book about an alligator who's constantly called a crocodile, and he just like is constantly getting bullied in school and sort of thing, and then he like has a nightmare, and the nightmare kind of transports him to this other world where he kind of has to like face that one on one. And this is actually where the red bird, now known as Joe, came from. um, I like first drew Joe here as the alligator's like cardinal direction through this story. So the cardinal in this is constantly guiding the alligator of where to go. He doesn't really know what he's doing, but he just has like a path he needs to go on. And so in this specific shot is where he gets trapped. And I don't know if I included it in on the slides, but one of the slides is the bird is in like a net. And that's when his cardinal direction is lost. And so then he has to figure things out on his own. And so then he meets friends along the way. The snail helps him out, and then he meets a turtle who was on his back, and he helps the turtle over. And so now the turtle will help him out. And then I think there's one final shot. Yeah, and this is where he faces the crocodile.
The crocodile has his bird.
The crocodile took the bird and was ready to like eat it. It was like in like a cauldron, cooking. And so this is where he faces his like fear of being called a crocodile. And he just like takes the bird and like snatches it out of his hand. But this is sort of like the shot of when he's like face to face with it. And in the end, he goes back to school, like drawing himself as a superhero with the bird.
No, see, I think that's cute enough. I mean, maybe it's just the wording was strange, but I feel like that's a strong enough.
I literally had words, and like I tried to like. Yeah, I'm so bad at this is why I'm an illustrator.
Yeah. I mean, it takes a lot of juggling, I'll tell you that. Yeah. To concept to draw, and then also have the story behind it, and then be able to articulate it. So don't be hard on yourself.
I think with the I know we're gonna go through some sketchbook photos, but this was another one where everything was hand drawn, and I scanned it in.
Wow. Really? Okay.
Yeah.
I just assume so much is digital. It's just the consistency of the line, and the cleanliness. Like obviously it has that feel on purpose of like different parts not being fully colored in, but it still feels digital in the sense of those lines being like specifically like here. Like it's just
I love that. Was one of my favorite things at the time was just going to the art store and picking up a new like ink pen and just seeing how it would work. And so this is one of those, like, I think they're Japanese, but it's like a brush pen, and it has like ink inside of it, and you can like as you squeeze it and use it, the line will change.
Oh, and that's stressful to me. That's stressful.
Yeah, it is stressful, but sometimes you let go and you just like let it happen, and it's a lot of fun.
I want to get there. I want to have that comfort. In the chat, Clever is saying these illustrations are adorable. Mike is saying that a drawing tells 1,000 words. Also, hello to Kendall, who just came in. Thank you over on YouTube. I do see you guys with all the emoji hype in the chat. Thank you to Louisa, Bertelli, and Mojave. It's great to have you guys here. If you guys have any questions as we continue working on, please, by all means, throw them in. We're moving on to some very serious work of bird dancing.
Yes. So there's really no description behind this one other than I was like, really into animation, and I wanted to do like subtle like stretch frames in between, so like the eyeball when he's going up and down, and like the hands. He's just a dancing like bird. That's all it really is, but I've loved it so much.
Oh, it's wonderful.
I had to include it.
Now, you can see that you have some smudge going on with, especially like the pupil, which is really nice. It adds an extra flair of life to it. Did you kind of just teach yourself through the principles of animation, or was that something that you also learned at school?
No, so none of it was at school. And I thought I had the book next to me, but you might know the book. It's what's it called? Elements of Animation, but it's like the illusion of life. It's by the guy who did Roger Rabbit. I am blanking on his name. But
I'm horrible at names, but I know who you're talking about. So
yeah, he has this awesome animation book that just like goes over everything. And this was at the point where like I taught myself as much as I could by just trying. Yeah. And then I read that book, and I learned about the stretch, like the smudge and all of that on like a different way. And this was very, very early of that kind of like learning it. So, but yeah, I want to do more animation. It's just so time consuming.
Oh, it takes so much time. Yeah. So much time and also so much like a lot of times I will work on something for a very long time, like the entire day, and then I'll bring my partner in the room and I'll be like, look what I did, and it's 2 seconds. It's like,
Yeah, they're
it
like,
took all
"Oh,
day.
great, like, those 2 seconds looked amazing."
Bertelli wants to know what the song is that the bird is dancing to.
That's a
Um,
great question, and it could be any song, actually. I'm
Mambo
wondering, like,
number
what the
5.
BPM is
Yeah.
to his, like
Yeah, it's
I
like
have
that
no
old
idea.
Tumblr Spider-Man that could dance to every single song.
Yeah,
There used
yeah.
to be. Louis also saying that there should be a TikTok with a fun song to this. So once you
Yeah, we
figure
should
out
bring
that
it back.
BPM, you know,
Yeah.
it'll get there. Next up, we have Emo's Not Dead.
I didn't realize this had a watermark on it.
No, it's fine
There
though.
there's no point behind the watermark, for this, but
I don't know.
yeah.
Threadless, not Threadless, but like Redbubble has quite the piracy issue. So never hurts to
That
have
might have
some
been it,
watermark stuff.
because I did use Redbubble for, like, a second.
Yeah. I
Um,
mean, you can use Redbubble authentically. That's not a criticism of the
no,
system.
no.
It's just there's
Yeah,
people
yeah.
that, copy and paste.
For sure. But so this was when I was actually this is when I started to go by the name Clon as an artist. And it was when I have like the cartoonist, but then I started a new Instagram account around 2017. And I was, the story behind Clon is that I was at Arby's and I ordered,
Wait, I was
and
not expecting
my
that.
real name is Colin. And so I'm like waiting there for 5 minutes with my buddy, and they're like, "Clon, Clon," and then like I said, 5 minutes go by, and I'm like, "Let me see if this is my order," and then it was, and so that's how the name Clon got birthed, was because of Arby's
Sponsored by
screwing it up.
Arby's.
Yeah, and then like all my college buddies started calling me Clon, and then like I kind of like went all in on the name,
Yeah.
and so this specific piece was sort of like I was drawing in the cartoonist style a lot, and I know this is similar, but I did like a few things different where the shading is like a little bit like heavier contrast. And I just liked drawing the skeleton guy because there's just a little bit more detail and like the bones and stuff, but still simple. I can never get out of simple.
Yeah.
But
To,
I
to,
love,
to
yeah.
that point, actually, Thomas is in the Behance chat asking how you kind of manage other traditional artists when you're using like lighter art techniques. And he said that the last artist looking at his stuff looked puzzled and kept like muttering fun and then fun again. Do you feel like you kind of come up against a conflict of the idea of using your brand language of simple? Does that kind of get in the way of the way people perceive your art?
For 100%. And
Yeah.
like my brother, and this is not a dig on my brother, but he owned a gallery and he was very into like contemporary art. And so I felt like there was always this like divide of illustration and graphic design was never art. And like a lot of people see it that way. That when something is done so simple, it's like, well, anyone could do that.
Right.
And it's like, well, not really. Like simplicity is a puzzle within itself. Like every line matters.
Yeah.
And so like for a while I never called myself an artist, just an illustrator. Like specifically never said the word art. And so I was just, into making characters and stuff. So to answer the question, yes, I deal with that a lot. And I think to this day I still deal with like, simplicity not like hitting the bar of what art is.
It's just always so fascinating to me too, though, just because the kind of dichotomy of the illustration versus art. But then, also like I tend to bring myself back to kids and the idea of like as a kid looking at like cartoons growing up, I always assigned them as art, and I was like, this is an artist. The person that makes SpongeBob is an artist. But then you kind of are groomed in a way, like groomed is a bad word, but you're kind of like shaped in a way that then as you grow older, you're kind of like taught to not think of that as art. But I'm like, no, like it's the stuff that I've always enjoyed, and is important, and takes, like, to your point, it takes a lot of time and effort to know how to simply draw something.
Yeah, it's
Um,
weird. It's like
yeah,
there's definitely moments where I could draw something like that quickly, but
yeah,
it's just because you get good at your muscle memory. But you could be like that. I forget how long that one took, but if you're just not getting it right, it's in your head. It's like it could take hours to do, like the same amount of time someone to paint like a landscape.
Right.
It's all just technique at the end of the day.
Speaking of which, the next one, we're then kind of getting into this skinning of a previous character, and now it's kind of beginning to manifest a little bit more. It's also the first time we see your signature of Clon. What's
Nice.
this
Hey,
about?
I'm glad that you picked up on that. Actually, this was one of the first where I wrote. I think it was because I wrote like Itachi Uchiha, like in that way, and I was just I've always been inspired by like Chinese brush painting and like anime and just like Japanese culture, and they all have their like stamp as artists, or not even as artists, just like their signature. And that's just something I've always wanted. And so like I put Clon that way because if you were to drop the I in Colin, you can read it, if depending on how you're reading it, spells Colin and Clon.
Oh, cool.
And it's like in a square. So it's the first time I did that, actually. So I'm glad that you pointed that out.
I also really like what you did with the birds here, especially the one in the middle. Because to that point again, like if I were to show this to a computer, I don't know if the computer were able to say that that's a bird, but as a human, you're able to look at it and you're able to make the connections and kind of create this. Sam says somehow I'm seeing Severus Snape, which is kind of funny now that he says that.
Oh, that's amazing. Great.
And Bruce is also saying it's very cool. Louise is over on the YouTube chat with a capital whoa.
Thank you.
Cool.
Yeah. Love it, Itachi.
So we have this next one, which is another cool one that you're really struggling with, that like fight of color, and you do such a good job at being able to navigate that, because you could easily lose so much here, but the subtle places where you choose to do white pulls the project into so much. And then you have that very heavy oil on the bottom right that I didn't even notice at first, but could have easily been too weighted for the piece. So props on all of this. This is all really
Thank
great.
You, dude. I appreciate that. I appreciate you explaining that too. Like you're reading me like a book. I love it.
Well, good to know.
Yeah, because it's like in the top left, you have just like white, like pure white, and then like you need to balance that out by putting something like dark in the other corner. And this piece is called Last Stop, and it's sort of just talking about pollution in the ocean, and was my way of kind of illustrating that, because I was just kind of feeling passionate about it. And so I had a earlier version of this that was smaller, and I colored it, and it just felt like the color was taking away from the message of it. And that like, it's all about the ocean. And for anyone who's been in the ocean or have gone scuba diving, like you lose color as you go lower. And so things become desaturated. And so I wanted that desaturated feeling by using just one color.
Have you scubaed yourself?
Yeah. I love scuba diving.
Oh, very cool. Very scary
great.
for me, but very cool.
It's terrifying. I went like 60 feet down through like a sunken ship, and that was like really cool, but also really scary, because normally you can just go straight up, and you're back, but you're in a ship, so you're like, something goes wrong, I have to find my way out of this ship and then up. Yeah, so it's scary.
Louise is saying the details, the colors, the black contrast. And also Thomas is saying that you look like you have line art enhanced, which is great. Yeah, they just have very strong lines.
Thank you. This was also a physical piece.
This was a physical piece? No way. Yeah. I was certain that this was a transition into digital.
It took me 3 times to draw this.
I mean, with this net, that's so stressful. That had to take such a steady hand. Like that is very
my wife always tells me I need to get into tattoos.
Yeah. No, I could never do tattoos. Hand. People would be like, what happened? And I would be like, I was nervous.
Yeah.
But also the cool one about that is it could also easily be a screen print, because it's so
like,
that
was the purpose of it, but it never happened. But it was supposed to be a screen print on a white shirt.
Never say never. Still could always happen.
It's true.
Could be cool limited print. Next up, we are then finally introduced to some of the more characters that you have going on. And this is an evolution of the canary that you were talking about. And this is still the cartoonist, though.
Cartoonist. Yep. So
Um,
a lot of kind of my bigger pieces I feel like I did with the cartoonist, because there was like this period of time where I just stopped illustrating and I went really heavy into motion graphics. But this was one of the last few that I drew, and it's actually you can't really, it's kind of getting blocked, but it's right there.
oh wow, check it out.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And it's one of my it's one of my personal favorites because I love those characters so much.
yeah,
And one of my favorite things is creating a border and then going outside of it.
yeah,
Just like subtly to like kind of make depth. Like without that, there's no depth. But once you get like a hand breaking the border, you're like, oh wow, it looks like they're in a window or something.
yeah. And I
Um,
remember that back in Tumblr days too, they had that. A lot of people were doing things with like it breaking over top of it.
yeah,
But it's cool to also see that this is another manifestation. If we go back to the Atlanta piece where you were playing with negative space again, this is a different way of you interacting with a negative space,
yeah.
and challenging the viewer, which is cool. Andrew Deacon is saying that he loves the shades of blue in previous work and the details in the ocean. Also, Annika says she would totally get a Clon tattoo.
Uh,
So no,
yeah.
you always have another revenue stream if you ever want
I
to get
know.
into tattoos.
That's always been my fallback. It's like, well, I guess I'll just do tattoos.
Yeah, right. um, and then I think it's the last one we. Oh no, you have two more. We have like a paper piece that looks like
Yes.
with cut pieces of paper, which
So
then once again kind of plays with negative space again.
funny about this one. This one is weird.
Yeah.
So the one we're looking at is actually digital.
Okay.
Uh, but the one I did was paper cut. Like I actually cut out everything and like made it intertwine and stuff.
Now, was that with a laser printer or was that with an X-Acto knife?
X-Acto knife.
X-Acto knife, stressful. Okay.
Yeah, I loved. You'll see it now with the cool cats, but I just love blobs. I don't know. There's something about like doing one line
Yeah.
down. But I had a few of these, and this was my favorite one because it was sort of this like trapped feeling of just like color and everything. And I love primary colors, so you'll see that a lot in my work. But just the contrast of all those colors, and then just like the black kind of like human in the middle.
Yeah.
But I also started to experiment more with digitally mimicking paper cutout and like
Yeah, kind of
working
that
with shadows and
convergence.
stuff.
Which like I feel like that really started to kind of make a head back in the middle of like the 20 teens because we had to all learn digital in the 2000s and
Yeah.
then we kind of were like, okay, cool, we learned it. Now can we like then bring it back to our life?
Yeah.
Which is kind of cool to see that progression. Hello to talented Mr. Fix It, and hello to oh well, I guess Sam was already here, but Sam says that he thinks this is really cool style for this one. And it's cool to
Thank
see
you.
the breadth of your work. And then I think it's this last one, yeah, with the cartoonist in comic art form.
It's just one of
Now,
my favorite comics because like it's a message to myself, really,
yeah.
and then hopefully others. It's just like, who's overthinking it? You are. Like, just stop overthinking it and do the thing.
Well, to that, do you find yourself kind of personifying yourself as Blue Cat, or do you
Yeah.
kind of view Blue Cat as a separate entity?
No, I don't like drawing humans, and that's why Blue Cat came to be. Was like personifying myself as a character was Blue Cat, and it's very much, yeah. So if there was ever an instance, I would just draw myself as Blue Cat doing the thing that just happened, or like whatever.
Oh, fantastic. Well, thank you so much for having us go through all your work and just checking out a little bit of like as an artist. It is really cool to also even be able to pull back the curtain a little bit more though and be able to look at some of your sketchbook. So if you don't mind, we're going to hop into our next segment. What's in your sketchbook?
Ooh, what's in your sketchbook?
Well, thank you very much for sending even more content to go through. And we're going to see some more of some cool cats here. So for those of, especially over on the YouTube chat who are here from the cool cats community, good to have you guys here. Talented Mr. Rick, by the way, is the talented Mr. Fix It. But it's cool to see that you have some of these sketches, which I don't know if these are for original ones or how these are manifested. But can you tell us a little bit about these cats?
Yeah, so this was the sheet that kind of started Cool Cats. Like I knew what I wanted, There's actually an even small. You can't see it, even if you maybe you can see it. It's like that.
Oh, little tiny BB, like
Yeah,
light
I
switch
can go get
size.
it here. One second.
Okay.
I've taken it off my wall a few times, but I drew this when I wasn't drawing Cool Cat or like Blue Cat or anything, sort of
Yeah.
like 2019 to 2020 range.
Wow.
But I drew all the characters as like full body characters and outfits. And so
Mhm.
specifically that cat became the silhouette of Cool Cats. And
Oh, very
so
cool.
I basically just scanned this guy in and just started drawing him over and over again with different outfits on. And a lot of these ended up making it in one way or the other into the Cool Cats collection.
No. Well, do you have a favorite of these original ones that you kind of sketched it out on these on this piece?
It'll always be the astronaut. I don't know what it is about an astronaut costume, but I feel like it's the first thing I draw every time with whatever character. I'm like, oh,
I mean,
how
I'm
would they
also
look
just
in a spacesuit?
I'm a big space fan to begin with, so it's always nice to see. Also, we have this wonderful drawing of these cute little animals,
Yes.
but in a
Yeah.
different style of what we've seen before. These have very beady eyes. They are very scaled down, which is nice. This guy is hilarious.
Yeah.
You want to talk about these guys?
Yeah, so this was I love drawing animals, and this was sort of honestly, it started off as a warm-up exercise, but turned into something I loved and I just kept going with. But each one of these were done with just pen, no pencil, and like whatever mistake happened, I had to go with it.
Right.
Which is kind of a trend I like to do is to only use pen and complete the drawing. And so I don't even know where the animals came from, but I was like, ooh, a chicken, a deer, a panda. And I just like, just whatever I could think of. I was like, what's the quick, like tiny version of that?
It's a very scary crab.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. Like that's a moment of like kind of messing up, but you still, yeah. You still just go with it.
Oh, it's great.
It's hilarious.
This gives
But
me
I
almost
did
like
draw a
Banjo-Kazooie
grid for
vibes.
this, and that's why they're like kind of in a grid. But
Also, is the bird okay or is it dead?
he's okay. I think he fell like off of a skateboard or something, and just like skid across the floor.
Talented Mr. Fixit says companions alpha question mark exclamation point.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, look at this little pludgy man.
Yeah.
He's so chonky.
Speaking of pets alpha, this is when we were drawing the first pets.
Okay.
This was like one of the first kind of sketches I started to do of being like, what are these things going to look like? Are they elemental? Are they not? And then when I get bored, I just start drawing things I already know, which is why I did like the cool cat, like my cool cat, but like smaller and like cuter. And then little chugs up in the corner.
I don't know. I feel also there's some things that you draw every now and then. I just kind of feel sad, and I'm always like, "Oh no, is everybody gonna be okay?"
There's a lot of that in my sketchbooks when I'm like, I think it's because I'm sad that I have nothing to draw, and I'm just like, well, storm cloud.
Now, if you don't mind me asking, are you left-handed or right-handed?
Left-handed.
You're left-handed. Okay, cool. So
did you pick that up by the sketchbook?
The spiral was on the right, and I was like, "How are you like going over?"
Yeah, for all my right-handers, have to feel what left-handed felt like.
Man.
But
that's tough because I normally actually even stay away from any sort of spiral-bound sketchbook because then I feel like I have to sacrifice half of like an open page, which is interesting. I mean,
are you also left-handed?
No, I'm right-handed.
Okay.
So I just end up abandoning the left side.
Right.
Because then it has like a fourth section.
I don't
Bruce
know what
asking,
it is about spiral that I like so much. I think it's because it's I don't know. It's
you can rip it
for the page on whatever, but
yeah.
I
tend to kind of lean towards Moleskines for the most part, which is a cliche, but
no. I mean, they're great. I have quite a few of those. They're great sketchbooks.
But you feel like you mostly lean towards spiral notebooks for the most part? Do you lean towards a brand in particular?
Yeah, funny enough, there's a store called Muji.
Muji, yeah.
They just sell little sketchbooks, and I I love them so much. I guess I don't have one around me, but I just love their sketchbooks so much, and maybe there is one around me.
And do you feel like you have an easy time filling up a sketchbook, or do you tend to kind of migrate away from another one when you're halfway through?
I've definitely migrated a few
Yeah.
times because, like many artists, you want like a fresh thinking, or like, oh, well, now I'm in this era of whatever, and I only want to draw things like this, and
Yeah.
so that happens to me a lot, especially with notebooks. But lately, kind of like I showed you earlier, I have the like drawing. I have this now, and this is how I've just been drawing like all the time because
Yeah.
I just buy the big pack of paper and have like a bunch of them in here, and then this is like on the go. Like I can just like take this anywhere.
As you're sprinting through the streets
yeah.
of LA.
Yeah, I gotta get this thing drawn.
I gotta draw.
yeah.
And then one last question about your sketchbook. I mean, we're still going to be looking at sketches, but when it comes to your sketchbook, Annika says, I love Muji sketchbooks. Are you good at filling up the first page? What do you normally put on the first page?
No, the first page is a lot of the time one like tiny illustration like centered in the page.
Okay.
It's like your welcome page to the whole sketchbook.
Do you
and usually
do
it
you
has
come
like a
back
date.
to that? Or
What?
is that at the very start? Like, do you fill out the sketchbook, then come back to the first page and do it? Or
No,
you open up, you're like, all right, this is the
whatever it is, first one. And let me see. I don't think I have it on this one.
Is it, especially if it's one of your moments where you're like in oh, look at him. It's cute.
Yeah, this is a notebook, not a sketchbook, but like
same mentality though.
Yeah, and I usually put the date. I think to me the date is the most important because I like to open sketchbooks and be like, what year was this? What month was this? So
oh, very cool. Next up, we have a cool map that you've shared with us. Can you talk a little bit about what this map's about?
Yeah, so this is Sapphire Town. And this was actually drawn like a long time ago where we were starting to develop like where everything is in Sapphire Town. And I'm actually coming back to it now as I start to develop it. It'll look a little different than this, but sort of the bird's eye view of where like Blue Cat lives and the rest of them. And so you have like the milk bar. Your house represents Blue Cat's house since there's a bunch of cool cats. You got like Joe's General Store, Town Hall, the fountain, the milk museum. Like it's like a museum in the shape of a milk carton. And then kind of like outside of that, you have the ocean, Tepnu's ship, the flower forest, and Marshmallow Mountains. And the significance of this drawing was when we did Cooltopia NYC last year. We were starting to think about like what's in this. And so for anyone who went, you entered and you had the flower forest right next to you, and you could like put your hands through the flowers. You had the Marshmallow Mountains, which you were in the depths of, where there's like lava. And then
now, is it okay if I pull up a picture of that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, cool. Let me see if I can grab it while you can continue talking. I'll see if I can grab the pic real quick.
And then there's the fountain in Town Hall, and that's sort of the middle of all of this, what that represents. And the one that's not in here is the upside down house, because that's way up in the sky, in the clouds. And so that sort of became, we were using this for multiple things, but this was in my sketchbook, and I was like, oh, this would be a great one to include. Haven't thought about it in a while, like this specific sketch. But it's fun. Like thinking about layouts is a lot of fun.
All right, let's see here. So was it interesting, like taking something that you're so used to having manifested on a 2D page and having to then have it manifest as a 3D space?
Yes, it is. I even get that way with making like 3D assets for like a game or something, but I am so two-dimensional that it's weird when you start thinking about these things. And like, I give a concept, and the Media Monks, the company we were working with, like it's so cool going back and forth with people who are the opposite. Like they're so good about thinking about the experience of it. And then like you start coming up with ideas and being like, oh, what if this whole room was upside down? Or, you had these wristbands that you went around and collect chests with. And then you could get merch at the end of it. And I'll never forget the moment they were like, oh yeah, we can have an obstacle course. And I was like, we can have an obstacle course in the building. And they're like, yeah, we could do that. I'm like, we're doing it. Like we're doing that. So
That's fun. So did you get to keep any of the physical things that they had? Like, did you
No.
take anything home with you?
No, I'm still trying to get one of those chests. I still
Yeah.
really want one of those chests, but right now they're in storage because we might use them for other things.
Right.
That's not alpha for anything. It's just that's what it is. It's just
Yeah.
you put it in storage in case you need to use it.
Yeah, there's no reason why you need to trash everything just because, you know, it's the thing is over. But then next up, which I think is really cool, I recently watched a YouTube video about the Simpsons no-no sheets. And it's like it's a pretty good like mini YouTube documentary. It goes through the ways that you're not supposed to draw the Simpsons. And so when I saw this of your blue cat, I thought it was really interesting that you included down here, similar to your graphic design background of like when you get brand logos and it's like, don't rotate the logo, don't move the O. It's cool to see that you don't marry the eye to the edge of the head, which is interesting.
Yeah, it's weird because like Blue Cat sort of his head is sort of like a melon. It's not like doesn't have like a snout or anything. And so yeah, that's exactly it. And this was actually when this is predates Cool Cats and was when I was redesigning Blue Cat. Because for a while Blue Cat's head would be round on one side and then just like flat on the other. So this is when I made his head a little bit rounder. I had like rules where it's sort of this like melon shape with two circles on it. And that's how you that's how you can rotate it and stuff. And so like the bottom view that you showed, it's like that's what you can't do is like having it kind of squeeze in certain ways.
Right.
But profile Blue Cat will always be the hardest one to draw. And I feel like I never can get right, but where it's like completely sideways.
Oh yeah, but I feel like that's very true with a lot of famous cartoons, like whether it's like Hey Arnold or like even like SpongeBob. Like it just you get so used to seeing them front facing that the moment that they're no longer what you like are always seeing, then suddenly it's uncanny. It's like Uncanny Valley almost.
It's so weird. And like Charlie Brown from the Peanuts, they recently did a 3D movie. And I don't know if you saw what I might be referencing, but they had a whole different rig for when he faced to the side. His nose went up, his eyes went. And I was like, that's so cool.
Like that isn't even something that they kind of even do. And as far as drawing, because like now, they like expect you to kind of make a 3D model that you can do a 360 of.
Yep.
And the fact that what you're referencing is the idea that like, they're switching it so that it's a completely different model is just blows my mind. Cool. Well, we have a bunch of other stuff. We're actually already like 50 minutes in.
Sorry.
I want to make sure. No. You're wonderful information. Thank you for everything that you're sharing. Is it cool if we move on to the next part, or was there anything in particular that you wanted to share from your sketchbook?
Could you show the children book sketch? It's like a big one.
Let's see. Is it yes, absolutely.
Yeah, that's the only one I think I care about.
So this one, right? So cute.
And so these were all ink drawings, and each one of them was scanned in, and then I put them all together. But each one was hand drawn, and just a lot of fun. This is when I was developing the bird character before it entered like the Cool Cats or like Blue Cat and the Cartoonist. So it's just fun to see the development of these
and the
characters.
Experimentation and just like the small nuances that change.
There's even like a page where I've like broken down. It's like near the bottom, but where I've like separated the bird.
You mean like in the file?
No. You were zooming in on it.
Oh, zooming in. Okay, cool.
It's above the colored one.
This guy?
Yeah, that one where I've like split it apart into what makes up the bird.
I also love the little spider. It's cute.
Yeah,
cute spider. That bird would eat that spider. But
so
Sam
that's all I wanted to show was that sketch.
Oh, wonderful. I guess I could also even just like quickly click through what we got. We got these guys. I love the crazy mohawk going on there. Very fun. And so this is actually a great segue. By the way, I
Yes.
do want to call out Sam
Perfect.
Peterson says Simpsons almost never drew from the direct front. Some angles don't work super well. You can Google Simpsons from the front, and they look really off.
Yeah,
Which all
their
plays
circle eyes look so, in their like weird nose. Yeah,
Um,
totally.
And we've talked a little bit about this as we've gone through, but a big part of being an artist is getting inspiration from others. Oh no, sorry, is from making that transition as you grow as an artist. And we have from this to that.
From this to that.
You were kind enough to send over some old works, and we can talk about kind of how they relate to your work now. But this big one that we have here is this character that is having a anime moment with the hair flying up.
That's exactly what it is. But this was a collaboration I did with another artist in the space, Ghost, and he just gave me the theme blue. That was it. It was blue. That's all I had to go off of. But I always like to reference the artist too, so I kind of did it, and not in their style, but how they draw things. And so, actually, funny story about this. This was the first time I ran anything through AI.
Oh, okay. How so?
And so, like, not the final product, obviously, but I was like, I had a bunch of these concepts. I didn't like where it was going. I have a buddy who's really into AI and has been for years. So he kind of has his own engine. And I was like, hey man, could you just like run this through AI? And it like gave me a bunch of like actual like anime, like 3D painted like anime versions of this. And it like put it underwater. It made like the highlights all cool. And I was just really into that. And so then I took that and like backtracked and sort of like slowly ended up here off of those references. But it was the first time I used AI as like a tool to like further my thinking, which is cool.
And it's also using it in a way of conceptualization and the idea of being able to then take that and add it back to your final piece, which is always cool to see how people are interacting with it in different ways. So this is a more recent piece. This one's from 2023. You also went ahead and shared some old pieces. So let's look at how that is one of the most recent pieces.
The oldest one in this mix, oh gosh, I actually don't know. It's probably that one.
Number 1 or 4?
Yeah.
And
so, I have a bunch of old drawings, but I specifically took these ones out because this is when I started to take myself seriously as like an illustrator, and I drew characters and stuff. And so this is the first drawing of Blue Cat in a way. And like really it's just all that survived was those eyes and like maybe the nubs of his
I was gonna say the foot. I definitely can recognize the foot.
Yes. And the 2 whiskers.
2 whiskers kind of go off.
So it's like the eyes and the whiskers.
But now you don't really go into the face, right? It's just is it just on the edges? It's just
it's like on the edges, unless it's turned and then it has them in the face.
Speaking of which, actually, I wanted to ask you a question. This is a little off topic, but the idea of having your work then be professionally created by others, how was that of a jump of like being like when you're creating no sheets or whatever, you are giving it to be like, okay, this is the official way to draw it. How did that feel weird at first? Has it gotten normal, or does it feel strange?
It still feels strange, but I recently, funny you bring this up, because as of recently I've gotten better with it. Like, because it's almost like a coming to terms thing where you are not going to be the person that will always draw it. Like with how fast it needs to scale and what we need to do, like you can't do it all. And that is the toughest like lesson I had to learn. And like just to any creative director out there, the shift you have to take is like, you are more higher level thinking, like concept sketches and like making sure the direction of it is on brand, but like you don't literally have to draw it. And that's been weird for me. It is like something I'm still coming to terms with, because the whole reason I wanted to get into this was to draw, but now it's like, oh, it's different now. And so I've actually been finding I know this is still off topic, but other ways to create. And so recently I got a video camera, like it's a camcorder, but it's this classic like skateboarding one that we grew up with. And so that's kind of been my new creative outlet because I need like a hobby. My
Right.
hobby was illustration, and now that is sort of my profession.
Yes.
And so you like need a different outlet. And right now that's been that. And it's been so much fun.
It'll be interesting to see. I mean, once again, I naturally was like, oh, like I hope one day we'll be able to see those. But at the same time, there's so much of it. It's like very quickly hobbies and stuff can then turn into performative, and then it kind of takes away that hobby because then you're like thinking about it too much. So part of it, like,
you're like, how are
keep it
people going to
secret.
react to this?
Don't share it almost to a point. I also want to bring up this cute unicorn rides for $15, which all things considered is a pretty good deal. This is obviously like in physical form because you can see the texture to it. But how do you feel this relates to your work today?
So the 3 drawings that I put in here from like the past were all a part of a 100 days drawing thing that I did. And again, like kind of I said it before, but this is when I started taking myself seriously and like evolving. Oh, I forgot there was the 4th one. That's different. That's when I really started to draw Blue Cat. But each one of these, like I had like a sketchbook to the side. I could sketch the concepts out, but then I had like the final sketchbook, and I only could use pen, no pencil. And so
you like to torture yourself.
It's how you grow. Like that's how I get my line work better, is by like trusting like where it's going. And so even from day 3 to I think it was day 27, like you can see I feel like I'm getting a little bit better, but now I'm adding color and I'm thinking about things differently. And this one is more of a
and like
joke.
telling a story too.
Yeah, exactly. And so this guy actually has no description. I just thought he just sort of happened, and his head is like a baby bottle pop. And then I just what I would always
baby bottle pop.
Yeah. And what I would always do with weird drawings like that was I would do the drawing and I'm like, what words could I attach to this? I'm like, free your soul. And like there'd be a lot of that where the caption would in this sense, it kind of makes it actually relates, but like others would just be like so off the wall. But
well, this one feels aggressive because free is all capitalized. And it's like, free your soul.
Free your soul.
Okay. Calm down.
But with the reason I put this one in here was because it was like my line work. It was the first time I was like, wow, my line work was like super. Maybe not the other hand, but that hand is like, it's getting really clean, like compared to what I had been drawing. And so by doing these once a day for 100 days, like I saw the progress happening. And it was just really cool.
Would you ever do a 100-day challenge again?
No.
Too much.
I realized Inktober is even hard enough. Like,
oh yeah. No, Inktober is insane.
Yeah. It was when I was just a fresh college kid, had all the time in the world. I'd get back to my room and just like draw a picture. And now it's like, I wish, but it's way too hard.
And then we have something that's closer to today, which now I can also now really identify that you have this overlapping cloud coming out of your constrained box as well as this hand, which is nice. But what would you tell your previous self now that you know that you can create something like this?
It's that, like, you know, because I used to be very hardcore about only pen and stuff, and like I would never add backgrounds. And so I would tell myself to like take it slower and like come up with a really good sketch, which I think you ended with it on the other one. But it's like come up with a good sketch concept and like feel inspired and then draw the thing. And like I never did shadows before. Now I've started doing shadows and highlights and just like playing with depth and like breaking the border. And so, you know, it's just crazy, like going from that first cat to like this and how, I don't know, how it all works together. Had to add Husky and Dirkle.
Oh, so cute. So cute.
Oh, so this was the first one of these, because all of these are sort of the part of the same like collection that will be ongoing for whenever. But the clouds are actually the focus here. Like, remove everything else. What I was really proud of was the clouds, and like it's like a breath of fresh air, and I was really proud of it.
Oh, by the way, I didn't call it on the last one, but it says classic Dragon Ball reference.
Yep.
I said love that.
Yep. I was literally doing a rewatch of Dragon Ball Z, and I was like, wow, I didn't realize how much this inspired me at such a young age.
Yeah.
And then I was like, I have to
deep
draw
memories.
King Kai's Island.
Yeah. Also, for these, what I think is really pretty is that they kind of almost feel like mini prints or even like little greeting cards that you could have almost.
That would be great as
pieces.
greeting cards. Yeah. And I think the last one that's on here, yeah, this one is my favorite. It brings back to my simplicity and like letting so little explain a lot, and just like, you know, the choice of, is he like centered in the page, or is he actually a little bit lower? Is there like negative space above or below? And like, is he off to the side, you know, breaking the border with the cables? So this one's my all-time favorite.
Well, yeah, no, it is also when you guys went to, what was it? Was it VCon? Did VCon? Did you have the physical,
the TV head on the bench?
Head? Yeah,
yeah.
Which is also like, it's interesting to see that also like as a variant also become part of the physical
of the branding
canon or whatever.
It's weird. It's like cool. It's cool how certain things become a part of your branding and like your voice as a company. And like TV heads, I actually have been drawing those for like since the Cartoonist days, but it really came to form in Cool Cats. And so now it's like you see a TV head with ears on it and you can relate it to Cool Cats, which is, I love.
Cool. It's that bringing in the idea of simplicity again, and still being effective in making that connection, which, you know, it's the Nike swoop, it's the Target branding, it's Mickey Mouse, like just having all of that tied together. So we have a little bit of time left. I would love to check out some of the work that is in your collection.
Right. I only gave you one because I know this goes against everything, but I usually collect physical work rather than digital work.
So that works for me.
Yeah.
So let's check it out.
Could I see your collection?
So this is a beautiful piece. Who is this by?
This is by Ravi Vora, a professional photographer who I've become very close friends with through the space. And like the story behind this is Ravi knows this, but I used to like not really vibe with photography all that much because, you know, similar to how someone might look at my cartoon work, I was like, oh, you're just clicking a button, which I take back to all the photographers out there.
Of course.
And so he had this up on, I think like Foundation or Super Rare for a while. And I saw it on his page and I was like, it's the first time like I like felt something in a photo. I can't explain it, but the sun rays and he's very similar to me where he thinks about composition, like the negative space is the mountain and the sky. That's
almost similar to your beach piece. Like,
exactly.
Sort of.
And like the focus is that house, that tiny house right there on the hill. That is like the subject of the photo. And I love that the subject is so tiny and how vast the background is. So it's one of my favorite pieces I've owned. And it's literally on every background of my computer, my phone. Like I always tell them, like, I never thought I'd own like a Google photo, like, you know, like one of the stock photos you get on your phone, like that are
this is too pretty to even be stock. This is
well, and I said that to him, and he said the same thing. I'm like, wait, I didn't mean it like that.
No, yeah, right.
I mean, it's a really good thing.
And then to that point, actually, if you don't mind, do you mind if I just ask about a few things behind you?
Yeah. So got a few pieces on my wall. I have my Vinny Hager, and that's the NFT, but he did this thing with Gibson where you could get printed on a snowboard.
Very cool.
And I love that. I have this creature piece by Danny. I actually have another one of his pieces laying around here. but I just loved this. Something about all of that just really worked well. Not as just a PFP, but this actually felt like art, which is why I love it so much.
It also has those similar strong strokes that you have in your own pieces.
Oh, for sure. And that's what I really love about Danny. And then let's see, I'll just start taking stuff off the walls.
Yeah, I'm sorry to make you like take apart your studio.
Totally,
We're moving
totally.
it soon anyway, so it'll be in due time.
So we did a drawing contest where I allowed people to use the cool cats in my collection and draw them. Like that was it. And like this one I loved so much, and why I got it printed and why they, ended up winning was like it told a story. Was just like, I'm just like, who is this queen? That's his henchman. Is this like her husband that's now dead? Is this like her knight or someone that's going against her? So I had all these questions, and I just like love it so much that seeing how other people can like take something I've drawn and completely reimagine it. So
absolutely, in a way that you weren't even expecting. Like it wasn't even in your
Yeah, exactly. And then this was another artist in the space. Her name is Sunny, and she does Rurus. The reason I love this is because as an artist to artist, she started off at like around the same time as me in NFTs. I love this color palette of black, red, and white. It's one of my favorites. And so I just really loved it. And I was like, I got to get this. And so I
also the matting of it, clear see-through is really cool. I don't see that much.
Yeah. And actually, if you give me 1 second, there's one more piece I want to show you.
Yeah, for sure. We'll have some lo-fi quietly playing.
So I haven't framed it yet, which is the problem. But this is one of my buddies, and it might. I hope you can see it on. So this is painted. Actually, no. This isn't. This is airbrushed.
What? How do you even airbrush that? That's wild.
I know. I'm like, so Command C, Command V, so copy and paste, and Beautiful. It's just that cat all over the place. So
it's like a mix of. Is a mix of copy and paste, and also of like a when your Windows used to freeze up and you would move things around to make it.
And that's such his style, is like that kind of like referencing like Windows 95 or XP. Like, love this piece. Just need to get it framed before I can do anything with it.
Oh, the chat loves it too. Louisa says it's beautiful. Kuldam says it's amazing. Kendall says it's so detailed. It's so good. Uma Court and Oliver are laughing. So that's obviously going to be a big hit. Obviously, when you redo your studio, you're going to have to take that into mind.
It's going to be right. It's going to be wherever I am, but behind me for sure. It's such a funny one.
I actually missed. I meant to call it out earlier too, but I think it was Bruce who asked also recently if your wife is also really into cats, or if that's just a Clon thing.
No, it's also into cats, but Jeej grew up with dogs, and I think through me now loves cats. And we actually have, now that we're in this apartment, there's a bunch of dog owners, and they're not clean dog owners. They let their dogs like run rampant, and now we're like, we are cat people. Like we only love cats. Yeah. So, and we have 2 of them, but I thought for sure they would like jump up into the shot during this.
Yeah, my cat has been sleeping behind me this whole time, and I'm surprised he has not popped up. So about 10 minutes left or so. Cool. I know that I had asked you about sharing your screen and going through any of your process as well. Is there any tips or tricks that you have to your workflow that you use a lot when you're creating?
Yeah, I can do a quick one too.
Yeah, perfect. So let's do that.
Where I was on a Twitch stream, and so some people who are in the chat know I've said this hotkey like a million times, but someone came into my chat and was like, "Hey, do you know about this hotkey?" And I was like, "You just saved me so much time of my work. Like you have no idea." So here, let me get a big brush. And so like, let's just draw a smiley face. And you're like, you're like, oh, this is great, but now I want to separate the face, or like I want to move the eyes around. So you can take your lasso tool, and then I used to go, Command C, and then like delete it, and then like Shift Command V to paste in place.
Yes,
And
yes,
like,
yes.
all I'm doing is eliminating one step, but you can actually do Command Shift J, and it'll take that, it automatically puts it on its own layer. So now that
What? I didn't know that was there. I
love
hate
your
it.
transitions, by the way.
Oh, thank you very much. But I hate the fact that that is something that I did not know was a thing.
Yes,
That's
yes.
wild.
I tell everybody about it because I'm like, what? Like, I didn't know that. And so now that's the eyes, and then go back to the face. And it's like, all right, let's get this mouth out of here. Control Shift J, and I can start moving it around.
Wow.
It blew my mind when I figured that out.
That upsets me. Stubby says, I remember when the hotkey alpha was dropped on stream.
I knew Stubby. Yeah, I knew. Yeah, I was like, they frequent my streams, and like my mind was just like,
yeah. Speaking of which, I want to give you definitely a platform to be able to promote anything that you're currently working on or currently working towards. I know you were reworking your schedule, but have you figured out when you're going to be streaming on Twitch?
So I kind of want to get through we have a lot we need to draw for Cool Cats, and literally just getting a Friday back helps a lot. And I love doing the streams, don't get me wrong, but like it takes a lot out of you after.
Oh, it
like,
takes so much
streaming.
out of you.
And so you just have to like take a break and all of that. And so I feel like I'm not productive afterwards, where usually
my boyfriend
Friday
calls
I'm
it
left alone.
the streamies, because I get off stream and I'm very quiet. And he's like, "Are you mad at me?" I'm like, "No, I just streamed for like 4 hours." He's like, "Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
I
Streamies,
literally
streamies."
sink into my couch and I was like, I can't be social.
No, I
But
get that.
yeah, I love the streams. So I want to redo this office so that I can have a drawing desk again, and I can draw pen and paper again, or digitally if I want, and like do the whole process again, but also do like tutorials and stuff. So want to think through like what tutorials would be really great and what things people would actually want to learn about. But part of the reason I'm not doing it is because Cool Cats is going to be going to Comic-Con next weekend.
Oh my God,
which
that's
I'm really
already? Wow, that's
about.
so soon.
Yeah.
Wow.
Tell me about. And that's like, and last week I went on vacation because my family came to LA. It was their first time here. And so I took off that week, and I was like, well, I'm basically going to have to take off the week after that. And probably the week after that, because some other stuff. And so I'm like, I might as well just like put a little hiatus on the stream, redo my office, because it's a complicated setup. I have like a computer and then the other MacBook right here and stuff. So it'll come back. Don't worry. It's my favorite thing in the world, so I would never abandon it. So we're doing that. We have companions on the horizon for Cool Cats, which is where you can evolve or transform your pets.
With like a burn mechanic too, right?
Yeah.
I know we didn't talk too much about technical stuff too, but that's kind of cool too, as well as like making that juggle between your art and then also like a technology, like new approach, and how your art interacts with the new internet. And like,
it's so weird. So it's cool. Like that's what excites me about NFTs. It's the first, like everyone's doing this for the first time.
Yeah.
And then we just announced today, I can actually say it on stream, we're going to have 3 games in the pipeline. They've been in development, so I've played a few of them.
That's got to be weird too. Like
yes.
Not only having your creation created by somebody else, but then also like being able to move that creation and being like, my baby.
Yeah, my baby. Like, oh my God, crazy. Yeah, it's a wild trip. And actually, what's even wilder than that is we're gonna have a balloon in the Macy's Day Parade, Thanksgiving Day Parade this year. And like I've said this a million times on stages, but like the moment I laughed or like was like, I've never thought about this before, was when they were like, we have to like slightly redesign Blue Cat so he's more aerodynamic. And I'm like, aerodynamic? Like, I've never had to think about that before. This is wild. So that's been another fun thing that we've had to wrap our heads around, is like the balloon and everything surrounding it at the end of the year.
I also know on your recent town hall, you guys talked about mascots as well. So that's also another thing of having to juggle, and just the idea of, like taking something that you had on, you said very 2D, and not only just thinking as a 3D model, but like balloon, costume, TV head at whatever. I just find that very inspiring and very cool and very stressful. So props to you on that. Also, props to you for coming on the show, even though you have Comic-Con coming up next weekend. So thank you for taking the time.
Oh, of course. Yeah. You reached out to me and I'm like, oh, I'll be there. Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's been a pleasure getting to talk to you. Is there anything else you wanted to touch on before we sign off? We have about like a minute or two left.
I don't think so.
Cool.
I'm always so bad at this part of it, but you know, I wouldn't be a stream if I didn't say we like the cats.
We
So
like the cats, of course.
That's
You
my
gotta
final
keep
statement.
the tradition going. Well, thank you so much for joining. I really appreciated talking to you and being able to see behind the curtain. Very cool seeing your process and seeing how much you've grown over the last 10, 15 years, which makes me excited also for the next 10, 15 ahead moving on. But cool.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me.
All right.
This
Of
has
course.
been
And
fun.
good luck next week. Excited to see how it goes.
Yeah. I appreciate
All
it.
right. Take care.
All right. See you, dude.
All right, guys, that's it for me for today for Offset. Thank you guys so much for being here. It was a real pleasure being able to have both Roger and Clon on today. Once again, my name is Ryan Selvy. You guys can find me on Instagram and Threads under Ryan Selvy. Also around the internet, just as Ryan Selvy. But I had a really good time. Thank you to everyone in chat who had questions and comments. It was a real pleasure having you guys, and thank you for the engagement. That always makes the interviews a little bit more exciting. But we'll be back again tomorrow for 2 more interviews. We have Matt and Megs. We'll have Matt from Matt and Megs, and then also a friend of mine from college who is a phenomenal illustrator. She's done big publications and editorial designs, and then now she's also on to some more exciting stuff. So her name's Chelsea Beck, and she'll be out here tomorrow as well. But thank you guys again for watching. See you again this time tomorrow, same place, and I'll see you then. Thanks again. Bye.
Yeah, that was about an hour and a half.